Welcome back. We are on day 8 of the Rich Method, and today is going to possibly feel a little counterintuitive. I'm going to talk about how one of the most important components, or one of the biggest reasons why 1,000 people moved toward me in the last 9 months is because I didn't need them to. Let that sink in for a second, because today's session is about what happened when I decided to never worry about money again, to never do anything for money out of lack or scarcity or fear, and what I did instead. So today we're going to be talking about how we're either in sync or out of sync with all that is and what that means. So I honestly, I was going to say, let's start at the beginning. I don't know where the beginning is today. And so I'm just going to be really transparent and upfront from the get-go. This is not going to be a session that goes in ABC or 1, 2, 3. It's going to be more like G2 blue star. And I'm okay with that. Are you all okay with that? Can we go along for the ride? Many days, what I teach, it's very methodical. It has an order. But I'm going to tell you the truth. I didn't receive a message at 3 a.m. this morning. I received a message the entire night as I slept. So for 8, 9, 10 hours, the messages were just streaming through. Today, whatever comes out is what's meant to come out, and we're on the ride. So, what feels like a good place to start? So, I have always had this connection. You all know what I'm talking about. When you sense a connection to life, to God, to your purpose, you know, you feel, you have this connection. And we all have opportunities to strengthen this connection or to weaken this connection. And this is part of our experience as human beings. We're going to do all of the above and everything in between. And money is not something that I really ever struggled with. I witnessed my parents be in sync with money. I witnessed them generate lots of money. I watched them know how to attract it, how to cultivate it, how to develop it, how to increase it. So I just thought that's how it was for everyone. Because however we are raised, this is not only our reality, but it's what we believe to be true across the board. And so I never worried about money. I never had anything that I didn't want or need or couldn't figure out how to get. It was just, money was not, and the fear of lack and scarcity and there's not enough to go around and how are we going to pay the bills. This was not my reality growing up. And I will tell you an embarrassing story. So I graduated from high school. I went for a short time to a university, very well-known university, Christian university in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You might take a guess at it. And I was in a class, in a math class, and the professor was breaking down the rules of mortgage. Now, my parents never had a mortgage. They always owned their house outright. So this was a new concept for me. I didn't know people had mortgages. So this is giving you an idea of how I was raised. So the professor does the math if you buy a house outright or if you pay a bank interest over 30 years and how much you end up paying for the house at the end. And I, as an 18-year-old, raised my hand and out loud in front of everyone said, "Who on earth would get a mortgage?" And as you can imagine, the entire class erupted, in laughter. And my professor looked at me like it was my first day on earth. Apparently it was. And I went to my dorm, I called my dad and I said, "This just happened. Like, why do people get mortgages?" And he starts laughing and he says, "Monique, everyone has a mortgage." And I said, "But we didn't." He goes, "Yeah, but we're the exception. Most people do." And this is when I began to understand that life is not the same for everyone. Everyone is not having the same experience. And then soon after that, I moved overseas. Well, I first went on a summer trip to Myanmar. And if you don't have any idea where that's at, you didn't even know there was a country with that name, it's okay. It's a remote place on the other side of the world. And when I got to Myanmar, go for the wall. I'm looking for, switches. I flip the switch and nothing happens. Lights don't come on. Nothing changes. AC doesn't turn on. And this was the beginning of me realizing everyone doesn't have the same life. Everyone doesn't have the same experience. And this was very fascinating and interesting to me because I had been raised in a certain way and I had had a very isolated upbringing in all the ways that you can imagine. And now I was out in the world and I was seeing how other people experience life. And the biggest question I had is why would people experience life that way when they could experience life this way? And I wonder what creates the vast spectrum and contrast in people's experience in this physical material world. We've been talking about this. If you missed the last few days, I encourage you to go back and watch them because I'm taking you on this journey. And honestly, part of this, I never thought I was going to take you on. I had no idea I was going to talk about a lot of the things I've talked about in the last 2 days and what we're going to talk about today. I had no idea I was going to talk about it. But yesterday I said, when you get the idea and you get the guidance, you follow it. So here we are. Now, I met many people who had a vastly different experience than me. I lived in countries who they were poor, they were war torn, they were struggling, they had a lot of chaos, a lack of order, a lack of leadership, a lack of vision, a lack of food. I lived in countries where it wasn't normal for people to have food every day. And I took all of this in and I began to really try to understand it, try to make sense of it. When Derek and I started our business, we didn't have any money. I never thought it was a big deal because I just always had what I needed when I needed it. And I didn't have a habit of worrying about money. I didn't live in an environment where I saw my parents worrying about money, my grandparents, it wasn't in the circle, right? So when I didn't have money, it wasn't a problem. And when I did have money, it wasn't a problem. It just wasn't a problem. And when we first started our business, the first idea I ever got was you're going to wake up every morning, you're going to take a shower, you're going to get dressed, you're going to do your hair, you're going to do your makeup, and you're going to sit your butt on that couch, and you're going to have a notebook and pen in your hand, and you're going to write down whatever comes to you, and then you're going to go do it immediately within 5 minutes. So we talked about yesterday what to do when you get an idea. I was instructed on day one of when Derek and I said we're officially starting our business that whatever idea I was given, whatever I wrote down in that notebook, I had to act on it within 5 minutes. And so that's what I did. And the ideas led to incredible things. I met this woman who ran a boot camp, a fitness boot camp for women who were in cancer treatment, who had survived cancer treatment, who were in some stage of cancer treatment. Now, she ran a nonprofit, but one morning I heard, contact Anita, take her to tea, and ask her what you can do to support her. So that's exactly what I did. It didn't make any sense because Anita's probably not going to pay me for what she does because no one's paying her for what she does. She did it completely for free. She was one of those fitness junkies, like she had more energy than 12 toddlers. And she felt called and inspired to help women who were going through this experience to move their body, feel better about themselves, get them outside, get fresh air and sunshine. But I did what I was instructed. And Anita and I hit it off. And maybe a week later, maybe two, max, Anita calls me one day and she said, "Hey, I've been thinking about it. You need to meet my best friend, Suzanne." I said, "Okay, what's Suzanne do?" Suzanne has a couple of restaurants here in Tucson. She's also an attorney and she was everything. She was an attorney, a real estate agent. Like Suzanne was the ultimate overachiever. Like this lady was a type A, yeah, a go-getter, wealthy. I said, "Great. Tell me when and where. I met Suzanne for lunch with Anita sitting there, and Suzanne became our first paying client. She paid us a chunk on that day, and she paid us every month for a long time, and lots of relationships and connections and introductions came out of that. So as you can see, this has been the pattern in our business. This is how I've moved. And so it wasn't frequent that I would worry about money. It wasn't frequent that I would feel like, oh, I need to do something to generate money and I don't care what it is. I just got to make this happen. I've got a deadline. I've got a bill. I've got a whatever. But it would happen from time to time because, as we all know, life will life, and we get to see what is true for us, even in challenging situations. You know what I'm talking about? So Derek and I have went through, I would say minor times where we like check in. Do we really want to do this? Is this what we're really going to do? Is this what we really believe? And as I shared with you a couple days ago, the part that no one talks about, when you really let go and you surrender, you let go of what has been, even if it's awesome, even if it's not awesome, but when you're being asked to let go and step into this faith walk. And so I shared about how I was being asked to let go of the thing that was creating the most cash flow for us. So this topic around money and abundance and what I really believed about it came to the forefront. And I wasn't in a panic, but I was aware of it. And this one day, I heard my grandma say, go sit in the pantry. Well, my grandma was raised Mormon, and Mormons, they have enough food and supplies for like an army, just in case, just for the heck of it. So on my grandparents' property, they have multiple garages. And in this one garage that's closest to the house, when you first walk in, there's a designated built-in amazing pantry, one of my favorite sections of the property, because I love food and I love feeding people. And so I walk into the pantry, and on both sides and in the back wall, there's just shelf, 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 shelf. Now, my husband, I told you that he's a master builder. And so when he saw this pantry, he was inspired to get these big, fancy food storage things, they're PBA free and, all the things, organic and dolphin assisted and all the stuff. And so he said, I'm going to buy every bean that exists, every kind of rice that exists, lentil, sugar, flour, coffee, salt, and we're going to have a minimum of 50 pounds of each of these. Some things we had 100 pounds. Okay, so you could walk in this pantry and like anything you could imagine was in this pantry. We had cases of, crushed tomatoes and sauces and like staples, right? Kitchen staples. So I'm in the pantry and I sit on one of the things of coffee, and my grandma says, you're being asked to go on this faith walk, and today is an important day. And I want to anchor you back in this idea that you live in an abundant universe. And that I want to remind you of how much you have and how rich you are. That you have a surplus of so much. And you've had moments in your life when this has been brought to you, like front and center, and today's another one of those days. So I want you to sit in this pantry, and I want you to be in awe of the amount of food you have. And then outside of this pantry, in the rest of this garage, there's 4 freezers, 3 upright and 1, I forget what it's called. And she said, these freezers are full of meat. You have a cow, you have a pig, you have chickens, you have lamb, you have fish, you have salmon, you have cod. You have 4 freezers full of meat. And I want you to stop making this like you walk past it and it's just your life. And I want you to really feel it. This is the moment we're going to lock in for you this time. And later I'll share with you some other moments. And she said, you're rich and you live an abundant life and you live in an abundant universe and you will always have more than enough and you will always have what you need when you need it. And you'll always have the ability to point people and to show people where they can also find more than enough. And this has to be gospel truth for you. Feel it to your bones, non-negotiable. We don't circle back. We don't debate it. It's a done deal. And I want you to be so locked in on this. And I want you today to make a commitment to never worry about money again, no matter what your eyes, ears, and senses tell you. You will never worry about money again, not even momentarily. You will not get shaky. You will not question. You will never move from a place or a thought of lack or fear, ever. I was like, okay. And she said, it's a decision like any decision. Like some people just decide they're never going to drink soda again. They're never going to smoke another cigarette. They're never going to eat chocolate. They just decide and it's done. Just like that. Cold turkey. One moment to the next. I said, okay, it's done. I commit. And she said, okay, excellent. Now, she said, part of your job is to live this because you can decide and you can think it and you can believe it, but now you have to live it day in and day out. And it's really a continuation of how you've lived, but it's tightened, right? It's that final 3% that you lock in. And there's a number. You don't need to know the number, but there's a certain number of people when they commit to this, to living and breathing this way, that it will shift the consciousness of the planet. You know, all those variety of experiences you had from Myanmar to Albania to Kenya to the lap of luxury and all the wide variety of experiences you've had, the world can start to believe new things about money and what they can personally experience when a certain number of people commit to never worrying about money again, never doing anything just for the money, never doing anything because they need the money, never taking action in their life and their business out of fear and scrambling. And that's my part and don't take from me. And there's not enough. The piece of my piece of the pie is smaller than someone else's. So I said, okay, I get it. Now, another time this happened, we were living in Sarajevo. And Sarajevo has been through a lot. You know, in the 90s, they were on the news for being under siege. And for years, they were surrounded by their enemies. And they were being starved out. And in 2018, right after we buried Nina, I said, I need to leave Albania because everything reminded me of being pregnant and the baby and all the things and all the places we went and all the stuff we bought. And Derek and I looked at each other and we both said at the same time, let's go to Sarajevo. Neither one of us had been, but we just knew that was where we were supposed to go. So within a month, we got on a plane and we went to Sarajevo and we were there in the winter. Beautiful country. Looked just like Colorado. And we had this Airbnb that sat up on the ridge and looked down on the city. And in true Monique fashion, I immediately found a bakery that had the most incredible chocolate almond. If a scone and a croissant had a love child type of thing. And I made a commitment to walk there every day and buy 4 of them because it just felt like the right thing to do. And so every single day, whether it was a blizzard or sunny or cold or mild, I would walk from our Airbnb to this pastry shop and I'd get 4 of these. And there was a particular tree that stood out to me, and it looked like how trees look in the dead of winter. It was barren. It had no leaves. It had no flowers. It looked gray-brown. It looked like it was dead. And I passed this tree every single day. And when I commit to something, I commit to something. So every single day, I pass the tree. And one day, I come around the corner and I literally gasped. This tree took my breath away. Because on this day in early spring, this tree that had been dead and barren had so many white flowers on it. You could not have fit another bloom. And I stopped in complete silence and I sat there in awe and wonder. This is what abundance looks like. This is what thriving looks like. This is what it feels like. And I sat in that moment and it was a holy moment. It was a physical representation of what life is supposed to look and feel like. That tree and I had a moment, and then I went to get my treat, went back home and told the boys about it. And what most people don't realize, but more and more are remembering, is that abundance and thriving isn't reserved for a few people. It's not like some people get it and some people don't. If you're born in a certain country, if you're not, not. If you have a certain color of skin, you get it, and if you don't, you don't. That's not actually how it works. But what is necessary that almost no one talks about is that you have to sync up. And I don't have a better way to say it. And this is what came to me in my sleep. So we're going to go with it. You have to sync up with all that is. Life is not random. Nature is not chaotic. There is a plan, and there's a pattern, and there's design in everything. And if you can sync up with that more often than not, then you are in flow with how birds fly. You know how they fly together and they don't bump into each other? And then even when there's this huge number and they're creating these geometrical shapes, and the way the planets rotate, it creates these flower designs. And you don't know how that happened. Like, nobody programmed that. If you've ever went to the mountains or you've been in a field and there's literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of flowers that nobody planted, but they're there. Or been to the top of a mountain and there's giant stone after giant stone, and you're like, how did these get here? This is the feeling of all that is. When you have experienced something and you're like, there's just no way I could have made that happen, but it happened. There's no way I could have planned that. There's no way I could have forced that. And yet here we are. Those moments where you feel the miracle that life is, when you hold a newborn baby and you're just like, wow. That is when you are connected to all that is. And every thought and every word and every conversation, connection, relationship, decision either strengthens that or weakens that. And we get to choose. We have the ability to choose. We have free will. And whatever we do repeatedly over time creates the experience that we have. But when you sync up with all that is, life gets a whole lot easier. Does life always have challenges? Always. There's always these things that will grow us, because let's be honest, the way human beings are designed, we wouldn't grow otherwise. We wouldn't stretch otherwise. We have to be put in this situation where it's like, yeah, we're going to help you out here. But also, even those times when it feels painful and cruel, there's still design. And I'm going to share about that later. So, what are we doing to strengthen this connection to all that is when we have these feelings of awe and wonder, and we feel lucky and we feel connected and we feel blessed, and we're just, whoa, that was miraculous. Are we emphasizing it? Are we accentuating it? Are we rolling right past it and going, yeah, but what am I going to do about this thing? Here's the thing, this doesn't just apply to money, it applies to everything. When we're connected to all that is, our relationships are a lot easier. They're a lot more synced up, aligned, whatever word you want to say. Our health, the same thing. Money, absolutely. When we are out of sync with all that is, we don't even notice when our body doesn't like what we put inside of it. We don't feel our body going haywire when we drink a 6-pack of beer or shove in a whole bag of Doritos or 2 Cokes in a day or that god-awful Red Bull. We don't even notice it when we're out of sync with all that is. But when we're in sync, we know I feel good when I eat an avocado. I feel bad when I have 4 churros. We get that. When we're in sync, we know this isn't the right person for me, and we don't override it. When we're out of sync, we're like, oh my goodness, I wonder if this person can become my next pet project. I think I can change them. I can help them. I could rescue them. I could save them from themselves, even though they can't save themselves from themselves. So what happens when we choose to be in sync with all that is more often than not? There's these things that begin to happen that didn't otherwise happen. And one of the things, and today is largely about money, one of the things that I began to notice is that I could feel money. I could feel when money was near, whether you call it the energy of money or the frequency of money, I could feel money. Like some people can feel a storm brewing in their bones. I can feel money. And I literally sometimes catch myself, I'm looking around like, money is right here. And I can do this for my clients as well. I can sense when they're close to money and I can sense when they're far from money. Now, I will confess to you that sometimes I'm not able to rein this in, or I momentarily forget that I'm doing all of this in front of everyone. So some of you have seen me, whether in a hot seat or a rich mixer or a session, and somebody will say something and I have this visceral reaction and I go, no, not that. Don't do that, because I can literally feel they just move themselves like 100 miles from money. And then other times people will speak and I'm like, yeah, right there. Do that, drill down. You're sitting on it, like right there. Mind that it's right there. So there's so many examples of this, but the one that came to me in my sleep, and again this morning when I was getting ready, this is a recent example. So before we left Colorado, we were selling a lot of things, and I was having way too much fun selling stuff on Marketplace. I'll tell you, it became like my new favorite playground, right? I didn't even care, like, if I'm going to sell this for $10, it was fun to play the game, right? So this one day I woke up and I could feel I was in the flow. I was in the zone. You all know when you're in the zone, like I was dialed in, I was connected. It was like game on. And I was like, oh, Derek, I'm gonna list a lot of things today because I could feel it. It's like, okay, cool. So I'm listing stuff all day. And I mean, I would list stuff and it would just boom, sell, boom, just like that, right? 10 minutes later, like someone's driving up the driveway and getting the thing and paying the money. So I had sold like a dozen things that day. I don't know how many things I listed, but I could feel there was something else. And I was like, where is it? What's the thing? I can feel it. There's something. And this is not a small thing. It's not a $10 table or whatever, box of Legos. There was something more substantial. And I heard this voice, just go outside and walk. I was like, I've got to find it. And right there, as I walk past our driveway and up toward the garages, I see my uncle's four-wheeler. Now, he had brought the four-wheeler to the property when we first moved there. Had been sitting there for a long time, right? Almost 6 years, because I ended up getting Derek a new four-wheeler for his birthday not too long after we got there. So this four-wheeler just been sitting here. Obviously, my uncle doesn't need it. He probably forgot we had it. It's been sitting there this whole time. We're not using it. And I have this thing, and I want to share this with you because money really loves and things really love to be used for what they were intended for. And so this four-wheeler starts talking to me like, no one's using me for what I'm intended for, and somebody could really use me today. It's important that you list this today. So I said, okay. So I call my dad and I say, hey, Dad, you want to come over for lunch? He said, sure. Let me tell you something. When you call Dad and you tell him you got food, boom, Johnny on the spot, right? He's there. So here he comes in his giant black truck. He pulls up. I have sandwiches out. We eat. And I'm sitting across from him. I said, Dad, how would you feel about me listing Uncle Wesley's four-wheeler? I said, it's not being used. And I just have this feeling that today is the day I need to list it. He says, okay. Calls Uncle Wesley right then. He's good with it. I'm not using it. I forgot it was there. In Colorado, where I'm from, people have so many vehicles and tractors and lawnmowers and four-wheelers and crap on their 100 acres, they forget what they've got. Okay, so just to give a little context for my people. So I said, great. I said, Dad, only thing I need is the words. What do I call it? What's the brand? Just give me, Kiyosaki 4,000, whatever it is, right? And then give me the price. And when people send me a message, I'm going to send them right back to you. I'm going to give them your phone number. I'm going to say, call my dad. And then when they are qualified with you, then you send them back to me if they want to look at it. He's like, okay, done. So he gives me the name. I type it in and I said, what's the price? He kind of looks around and down. I said, what's the number that just came to you? He says $1,000. I said, okay, done. It's $1,000. And then he adds, and not a dollar less. Now, this is not at all like my dad, because my dad, he'll give you the shirt off his back. So when he said that, I thought that was interesting. So I said, got it. I type it in. We're sitting at the table. I type it in. My dad drives off. 8 messages immediately. Oh, you know what? My dad has all the details. Call him. I text my dad. Everyone's going to be calling you. Then he texts me, this guy is on his way. This kid's on his way to you. Sure enough, here he goes. Derek's like, I'm sorry to leave you hanging, but I have something else that I was actually working on. So is it okay if I'm not here? I got it. I'm supposed to talk to them. He's like, okay, cool. So I step outside with my, little outfit and my apron on. And this young kid pulls up. He obviously knows what he's doing. He knows what he's looking for. He's checking all the things out, opening thing, doing the thing. I just stand there in silence. After about 10, 15 minutes, he comes back to me. We're standing side by side, shoulder to shoulder. We're both staring at the four-wheeler, and he's like, so would you take 900? I said, I wish I could, but Dad gave me clear instructions, $1,000, not a dollar less. We stand in silence for a few minutes. He goes, well, I was hoping that I could get a little bit of a deal, but I really need this four-wheeler. Like, I just told my parents I need this, and it popped up on Marketplace. So he reaches his hand into his front pocket and pulls out $1,000 cash. He loads up the four-wheeler and he's off to do his thing, whatever he needs to do with that four-wheeler. I called my dad. I said, tell Uncle Wesley I have $1,000 for him. Come pick it up. I look at my phone, and in 45 minutes from the time I listed it to the time I have $1,000 in my hand. And see, this isn't just for me or my dad. This is money that's going to Uncle Wesley. And I put the $1,000 in my wallet. Uncle Wesley didn't come on Saturday, didn't come on Sunday. I'm like, what's wrong with this guy? Like, if you had $1,000 for me, like, I'm driving to your house right there. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to let $1,000 sit around. But Uncle Wesley apparently didn't care. And I started having these next level thoughts about this because I could feel the money and I took the actions, I had the conversations, but something dropped in with this experience that I had not got before. You know how a lot of people will talk about trees, how they're actually like in a network, they're connected underground, and like aspens in particular, they have this like really deep network. They're not just one tree, they're like many trees all together. And mushrooms kind of have a similar thing. There's different things in nature that have these networks. And so when one tree is, you know, struggling, then the other trees send them what they need, and there's water going through the roots, this whole thing. And that day I realized like, oh, this is the real definition of networking. This is network. This is a true definition of network. When you're synced up and you're connected to all that is, and you are listening and you are acting and you're in flow and you're in the zone, it benefits everyone in your network. Now, how many people are in your network? This morning, I actually asked the question because I hadn't asked this before. I said, so how many people are in most people's network? Like, people who don't even think they have a network. And the answer that I heard was at least 300. People who feel like they have no influence, no real community, they have actually at least 300. That's how many people are in their network. That's how many people are directly impacted by how in or out of sync that they are. And I was like, okay, and let's go to the other end of the scale. I heard something very interesting. One of the most in sync, in tune human beings was Michael Jackson. What I heard was is he influenced and impacted almost 100% of the population on Earth during his life and post-life. This was someone who knew what he came here to do, and he did it to the absolute nth degree that he was able to. There's people who have an influence of 10,000, 100,000, a billion. There's some people right now who have the influence of 5, 6 billion people. And you might be thinking, yeah, I know, and I don't like them and I disagree with them. It's irrelevant. The real part that matters and that I want you to sink your teeth into right now is that you have a network that is either benefiting from your being in sync, or they're sending you help because you're out of sync. Let that sink in for a minute. And what could happen if we were more in sync more often? How would that impact our life, our health, our relationships, our money, and everyone in our network? Whew, I just got covered with chills. And your network grows every time you are being who you came here to be, and you're doing the things that come to you. Every time you're in awe of life and you're in absolute wonder of this experience, your network is expanding. The numbers are going up. Now, that $1,000 was in my wallet and I actually forgot it was there on Monday. Saturday and Sunday, I was looking for Uncle Wesley. Monday, I forgot about him. You know, Monday hits, it's all the regular things. And then I hear the voice, go to Walmart. I told you yesterday about the Walmart connection. So I say, okay, Derek, I'm on my way to Walmart. By now it's, okay, see you in an hour or two, right? So I go to Walmart and I forgot I had the $1,000 in my wallet. I wouldn't have went to Walmart with $1,000, but that's what happened. So at some point, my phone rings. I think my dad calls and I'm digging for something in my purse. I can't remember why I started looking at my purse. And then that's when I see my wallet. And then I realize I have $1,000 cash in my wallet. And I go, oh, yeah. And by the way, Dad, when's Uncle Wesley coming? Like, the heck? Oh, he'll come when he wants to come. So I hang out with my dad. And now I'm in Walmart and I'm hearing from my grandma. I'm synced up and I have $1,000 cash in my pocket. And all of a sudden, I could literally feel myself expanding what I could receive in that moment and across the board. And then I get a text from Derek. And he says, "Hey, listen, I just got a message that came through to customer support. A lady wants to buy a program that you were promoting a year ago, maybe even a little more than a year ago. Um, do you want to do it? Do you have room in your schedule to take on a little bit of private work? And would this work?" And I said, "What program? Like, I can't remember what program I promoted 3 months ago, much less what was I promoting a year ago?" So he tells me, I go, "Okay, all right, yeah. Okay, let me fill into it. Yep, I can do that. And remind me of her time zone. Yep. Okay, I could open some spots for that time zone." I said, "What's the price point? I don't even remember what I was charging for that." He said, "It's 13,500. Okay. And he said she wants to pay in full right now. She want if you have the space in your game, she wants me to send her an invoice right now, and she's in." I said, "Okay." I can hear grandma going, "Yeah, good thing you came to Walmart, right?" So I said, "Okay, green light. I'm on board. Uh, I'm there." So he sends the invoice and it's paid. Just like that. I didn't pursue this. I this is what I call like out of the big blue sky moments. You know when things fall out of the big blue sky, and when they happen, how much can we acknowledge them? How much can we appreciate it? And also, how can these not be few and far between, but kind of a regular occurrence? It's back to the sync up with all that is. And sync up not only for yourself and how it benefits you, but for how it benefits your network. And then when your network is benefited, guess what? It just keeps swinging back around. I put $1,000 in Uncle Wesley's pocket, and then I had 13,500 put in my pocket. This is how it can work. Like, we're a network. We're meant to work together. We're all affecting each other, but we have to be more aware and conscious of how. So, how does this work in the real world? Yeah, I can already hear some people say, "How does this work in the real world when, things happen and life goes lifing?" So let's talk about it. Let's get practical. What are some things that you can do when you start to feel the shakes and the wobbles and the oh, right? You start doing the that before you spiral, preferably, right? Because once we spiral, then we spiral and then we have to up spiral. But here's a few things that you can consider before you spiral. When you just start going, "Okay, I made this commitment. This is what we're doing." But my eyes and ears and my senses are kind of telling me that all the bells and whistles should be going off. Like, I should be panicked. Like, it feels stupid not to be worried because I live in a material world. So here's a few things that you can do before you spiral. Do a little check-in. Here's the thing with being a human being: the more complex the problem seems, the more simple the solution is. So at the very onset of this feeling or these symptoms, we'll say, of disconnection, of falling out of sync with all that is, ask yourself a couple questions. Now, are you ready for this? Because this is like rocket science, right? You need a PhD for this. Ask yourself if you're hungry, if you're thirsty, if you're tired, or if you've been outside and got some sunshine recently, and if you need a hug. Those are the 5 questions you're going to immediately ask yourself. Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Am I tired? Have I been outside to see the sun? Do I need a hug? Do I need a human being to steady me? These are important, because sometimes we go spiraling and we like come to crazy decisions and really, oh, I was just hungry. I just needed to nap. I needed someone to put me to bed. I just needed someone to stand beside me and say, it's okay. Pantry's full. You're taken care of. You literally have 100% track record of getting through challenging moments. Do we not? Do we not have 100% track record? Has life not always provided for us? Like every single freaking time. Like I sometimes wonder, like, oh my God, our angels, guides, and ancestors are like, how many times we got to prove this to you, for God's sake? And we like you, we love you, we're here for you, but you know, as human beings, it can be a little slow, a little thick right here. We live in a society where we love complexity. You know, okay, so I don't know if you all have realized this. So we apparently have a mental health crisis. Okay. More people than ever are anxious, are depressed, suicidal, unstable, bipolar, fill in whatever blank you want to. And so what we do is we prescribe them drugs that have 72 chemicals to try to help them not feel the way they feel. And what we absolutely refuse to do is to go outside, get fresh air and sunshine, move our body, and have a conversation with a human being with a pulse. We eat an apple, eat something that's real. We refuse to do these things. It's not working. It's not working. When we feel this financial crunch and we feel this, oh my gosh, there's this huge gap between the haves and the have-nots, and oh my gosh, why does it feel like there's not enough to go around in the world? And we create programs by organizations and entities and people who have no clue how to actually create abundance for people. But the thing we absolutely will not do, the thing we refuse to do, is go, hey, you know, who are you? What do you enjoy doing? What would you do for free? How would you like to contribute to society? We don't even ask our own freaking kids those questions. We just put them through the chute. Hope you can remember who you are at the end. Hope that you can believe you live in an abundant universe. Good luck to you. Here's a few more things that you can do before you spiral. You can remember that while you might have this knee-jerk reaction to go find a solution or to fix a problem, if you will get back into sync with all that is, the ideal solution will come to you without effort. If you can take 10 deep breaths, if you can lay on the floor for 20 minutes and do a yoga nidra, if you can go for a 3-mile walk, if you can bring yourself and find your peaceful pocket inside, the solution will come to you. Usually delivered on a silver platter that is absolutely perfect for the circumstance. Now, I don't know if you guys do this breath, but this is one of my favorite things. I do it with my kids. I do it with myself. We're going to do it today. Do you all know the 2 inhales through the nose, fast inhale through the nose, and then the big blowout through the mouth? This is a miracle. So before you spiral, do this. How long? Until you're not spiraling, until you're like, oh yeah, I remember everything. Okay, yep, we're good. So it's just the over and over. Now, I had told you that even when life feels like it's more challenging than even seems fair, or certain events and circumstances feel like punishment, when we get enough perspective and we can get our nose away from the back of a very messy tapestry, and we can have this ability to see from a vantage point, we can realize there was even a design in it, even in the painful, hard stuff. So I shared yesterday, I did the session later than usual because I saw this group and saw that there was an event and there was this local thing 2 miles away, and I just felt like I was supposed to go. And I went, I had a great time, I loved it, and I just let it be that. But then, right as I was getting ready for bed, I said, so why was it important for me to go to that event? And I heard, because you had been in an environment for 6 years where it was hard and you were not welcomed and you were not received and you were not appreciated. We wanted to show you that's not true of everybody. And by the way, do you want to know why you needed to stay in Colorado for 6 years? Yeah, I'd love to know. Please do tell, because I can't figure it out. And what I heard is the four corners, this is where I'm from, where Colorado, Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico come together. This is a very hard and barren land. The people who made their way there, they were pioneers, they were tough, they survived a lot. The Indian tribes that are there, they have betrayed each other for hundreds of years. They have been at war with each other. One group hates the other, and the other hates them, and you did this and you did that, and we're never gonna forget. And this is an area that is financially, like, right, it's the poorest section of the state of Colorado. And in every way, it's just dried up. And they haven't wanted to get out of this cycle or this loop. Someone in the family hasn't said, I agree to sync up with all that is. Instead, they feel a real sense of loyalty to how grandma did it and great grandma did it. And they pass on the stories of who did them wrong and how they were cheated, who lied to them, who backstabbed, who did this, who did that. And so this is not only within the people, but it is so deep. It has literally saturated the ground, the soil, the earth. It's like, so far yep, spot on, this tracks. Mm-hmm. And then I heard, but see, the thing is that there's always this possibility that someone will choose something different when they see something different modeled. So we took you, that tree that you saw in Sarajevo, full of blooms, and we planted you in the four corners amongst the living who look like the dead, so that they could see that there is another option, there is another way, if they so choose. And when people choose not to take the option, they have to make the option wrong, and they have to make it bad. And they reject it, and it felt like rejection for you. But it wasn't. We were simply asking you to hold that energy and that presence in a high desert that needed an example of what could be. So Thank you for doing it. Well, see, now all of a sudden I'm not so irritated and pissed off and bitter, you know? I have a lot better time handling all of this. I don't know if there are things in your life that aren't making sense right now, but here's what I can tell you. There is an order and there is a design, and it all makes sense. And we might get different peeks into what it is, a little glimpse into what it is in this lifetime. We might not. But what I can assure you of is this, is that no matter what kind of family you came from or how many generations they chose what they chose, you can choose what you choose. And it will be like all of that never held you back. You will then start a whole new line and a whole new track and a whole new heritage. And everyone in your network will benefit. This is what's possible when you connect to all that is. And your life will show the fruits. It will show you to what degree you are connected and in sync, and to what degree you are disconnected and out of sync. And I started this session off by saying, the way I moved 1,000 people toward me in 9 months is because I didn't need them to move toward me. I decided one day in my pantry that I was going to live a certain way, think a certain way, behave a certain way, act on all my guidance, whether I was paid or not, whether I was recognized or not, because it's who I came here to be. And I left everything else in God's hands. Is this something that you're able to say yes to today? Because there's a certain number of us that have to say yes to this in order to tip the scales of what happens on earth. Your network is important. It will support you and you will support it. And as you step into this, and as you say yes to this, as you commit to this and walk this out in the real world where life happens, not in some theoretical thing, not in a sound bath, not in a Sunday morning church service, but in the real world, moment by moment and day by day, you will have done what you came here to do. And people will move toward you, and people will pay you, and you will be compensated in ways you couldn't have imagined, forced, or planned. No matter the problem, no matter the question, the solution is always sync up with all that is. Thank you so much for being with me here today. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.